Hello, everyone. Welcome to Not Your Father's Movies. I'm Jesse.
I'm Dan.
Oh, shit. And I'm Mike.
Sorry, there's a gap there.
And we're coming at you with some veto-less energy because we are without Vito today, which is why we just had a mix-up right there.
And also with some sword energy. Shit, I don't know. Some SPQR energy. How about I don't know.
SPQR energy.
I'm not good at this, Jesse. This is your job.
Some sword and sandals energy.
Sword and sandals. I like that.
There we go.
Because today we're talking about 2000's epic Gladiator. This was, I remember this being like a huge deal when this came out so many years ago. And we are, of course, doing our chronological Crowe series. We started out with Noah. Here we are in 180 AD with Gladiator and the Roman Empire being the Roman Empire and still having a Senate and kind of being in conflict with itself. So here we are with our chronological Crowe, ready to dive into this crazy mess. You guys excited?
So excited. I'm so stoked.
I mean, this is Russell Crowe's biggest movie, arguably. I think it's his most acclaimed.
Yeah.
Both by the Academy Awards and by myself. So yeah, it's a big one.
I like that. The two governing bodies, the Academy Awards and me.
I mean, what else matters, right?
Yeah, what else matters?
Russell Crowe didn't really matter until this came around, right? Like, as far as his career, like, I think he was in LA Confidential beforehand, so, like, people knew about him. But he skyrocketed into stardom after this.
Yeah, I mean, he was a big actor in Australia. He was in dozens of movies in the 90s, but he really rose to like stardom in Hollywood, I think, through this movie for sure. This was the big one that was like everybody went and saw this. Everybody loved it. It was definitely a huge cultural phenomenon when this movie came out.
Yeah, for sure. This changed the world. That's for sure. Yeah, I think the only other big movie in the US that he was in was LA Confidential.
So I guess Australians all knew about him, and it's just us in the US. We finally discovered him with Gladiator. Not discovered, but like realized what this guy could do.
Yeah.
And this movie won, like, it was a phenomenon. It won so many awards: Best Picture, and like we were saying, Russell Crowe won Best Actor, won Best Costume. Which is funny because we're looking at the costumes today and like they're pretty good, but like, are they really Roman? Is that how Romans actually dress? I don't know.
Yeah, my wife pointed out that the costumes are very 90s. And at first I was like, what does she mean by that? But she said that there's so many layers to their costumes. It's like they have like 6 different layers, all different colors, and then they have their fur and like everything is very elaborate.
Yeah.
And I guess she connects that with late 90s, early 2000s as a costume, design choice.
As someone who never has cared about fashion, I have nothing to say other than to say I thought his fur coat at the beginning was really cool, and then I realized those are actual animal skins right there. It just lent a certain like visceral badassness to him.
Yeah, it also won Best Sound Design and Best VFX.
Okay, yeah, I don't know about sound design. Sure, why not? The other things that came out this year were also The Patriot, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, and U571.
This was a big year. This was a big year for us guys. It was a big year for me, at least. I mean,
oh yeah,
like I do remember like The Patriot and Gladiator like trading blows as both being the goriest and like the most awesome movies that you could see for years after this. And I mean, U571, I remember that one. Oh gosh, amazing.
Yeah, between U571, this, and You're the Patriot, or sorry, The Patriot. I'm reading it off.
You're the
Patriot. Between those 3 movies, I felt like those were the movies me and my friends constantly went up to each other and were like, have you seen this? To like gauge whether or not we were like becoming like men.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember like waiting for years to be like, wait, so can we see this yet? Like, can we see it yet? And like, I remember some friends like, oh, we saw The Patriot, but they hadn't seen Gladiator. It was like, yeah, are you a Gladiator family or a Patriot family? We were a
Yeah.
Gladiator family, sort of by accident, but
Oh yeah, we were a Gladiator family too.
Same. I saw Gladiator and Braveheart. Braveheart was the other huge one that, like,
oh yeah,
I feel like just defined my teenage years. But yeah, these movies, historical drama, like
Action.
action flicks are really what made me feel like, wow, now I'm an adult. I can watch movies with like people getting their heads cut off and, you know, a lot of violence
like a
and gore.
grown up.
Yeah.
This is what grown-ups do. We just watch people's heads just fly off the screen. Oh man, yeah, huge deal. Number 338 rated movie on IMDb. And also, let's talk a little bit about the cast and crew here. So we talked a little bit about what's his name, Russell Crowe. We talked a little bit about Russell Crowe. Apparently, he was not first in line. Mel Gibson was, but Mel Gibson was kind of old. Like he was already in his 40s at the time. Like he looks fine in The Patriot, but maybe not for this. I think this required a younger man, so they gave it to Crowe, and he turned it down at first because he thought he was not physically fit enough and couldn't get in shape.
Whoa.
Yeah, because he was like 40 pounds over what he should have been. So what he did to get in shape, though, was he went back to Australia onto his farm and just farmed for the summer. Like he didn't do like a crazy 300 workout. He just went and farmed.
That got him in shape.
Yeah.
I feel like that's so fitting for his character as Maximus, as like the general that just wants to go back to his farm.
Yeah. And apparently the description that he gives Marcus Aurelius of his farm, he's really describing his Australian farm.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So on top of Russell Crowe, we've got Ridley Scott here. Have we not mentioned Ridley Scott? Has he not come up in our movies before?
I mean, we've talked about The Last Duel, that's for sure. Did we talk about him? Wait.
I guess we mentioned Alien before when we did our
Yeah.
Aliens podcast. But
When we did Aliens.
Aliens, not Alien. But yeah, he's done so many things, including a lot of swords and sandals stuff. Like he did Gods and Kings, Exodus, right?
Yeah.
And he did Robin Hood, which is going to be coming up eventually.
Yeah.
Didn't he do The Kingdom of Heaven or something?
Yes.
Is that Ridley Scott?
I think so.
He's really into like old, like sword battling action epics. I feel like, although I've never seen most of those movies. So what do I know?
Yeah. Well, he does like heavy heavy, not American, but just like drama, historical dramas, like all the time. Like they're serious, they're real, they're meaty, right?
From the movies of his that I have seen, I love how there's this combination of like a real plot heavy story going on, and at the same time it feels like he's trying to immerse you a little bit into the time period. I heard him say that he would like his movies to be kind of feel like a documentary, like it's just about this period, and he's trying to be as true to it as he can be with some liberties. Like in this movie, I think the size of the coliseum is a liberty. Like it's when he saw the real one, he's like, "Oh, this is too small. I want it to be bigger."
It's so big, yeah.
This is huge. Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think he's got a great style, and apparently he's coming out with another historical epic, Napoleon, with Joaquin Phoenix as Napoleon Bonaparte.
Yeah, I'm so excited about this. I had no idea until I was looking at his IMDb page today that he's doing this, but it sounds like the plot sounds amazing, and yeah, Joaquin Phoenix and Vanessa Kirby are phenomenal actor and actress. I'm very excited for this movie.
I've gotten invested into Napoleon because I started reading or listening to a biography of the guy. This dude is nuts. I can't believe like the amount of stuff this guy was able to do over the course of his not incredibly long lifetime.
Right.
And also, I think he's absolutely crazy. So I'd love to see a Joaquin Phoenix portrayal of this man.
Oh yeah.
Do you know what it's going to be about?
I I think it's going to be about this dude who lived a little while ago called Napoleon.
Oh,
That
really?
was his first name, and his last name was Bonaparte. He became an emperor, and then he died at some point between then and now. I think that's it.
Riveting stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted from this movie.
I love it.
I've got no idea what it's about. Sorry.
He's the one that made the ice cream. Or is that Neapolitan? No, I did read the plot, like the one sentence plot on IMDb, and it said that it was going to focus around the relationship between Napoleon and his wife. And there was some sort of conflict, I believe, between them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's I guess what's going to be kind of the main focus of the movie. I'm not sure at what point. I'm guessing it's after all of the conquering that he did, but I don't know.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I know from the little bit of the biography that I've read or listened to, their marriage is nuts. Like, she was cheating on him like crazy at first, and that was it was a real insult for a French general to, like, it hurt his reputation a lot to have his wife be cheating on him, because it's okay if he goes out and cheats on her.
Right.
That was socially fine. Obviously, that's socially fine. But for her to do it to him, that just makes him a cuckold. So, like, he was a laughingstock. But then eventually, like, they settle where he just goes out and does it, and she doesn't anymore. At first, he was madly in love with her, and then she is kind of madly in love with him, and it seems like they switch. So it's a really fascinating dynamic that they have. If really messed up, and I'm not sure how much I'll enjoy a movie focused on that, but I'll definitely watch it.
Yeah.
Malcolm and Marie, Napoleon edition.
Yes. All right. Mike, who else do we have in this movie? Do you know who else we have? Did you write this?
I wrote it.
Oh, Dan, who else do we have?
Dan wrote it.
I wanted to shout out the writers. There's 3 writers to this movie. David Franzoni, John Logan, and William Nicholson. I was looking at their credits, and they've written like huge movies. I couldn't even begin to list them, but they're just, all 3 of them have been on huge projects before and after this movie. So to have all 3 of them, combine forces on a movie like this, I definitely think it made me understand why the writing is so spot on. Like, the pacing, the screenplay, what they're saying is so profound in every single scene, almost to a ridiculous amount. Like, every single ending to a scene is like super profound. My wife kind of started like laughing at it at the end. She's like, yep, it's going to be the end of the scene because they're going to say something really cool. And like, that's how they're going to, like, it like punctuates the end of every scene. Which I love. Like, I don't care if it's unrealistic. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I was telling you guys this like before the pod started, but apparently, one of the reasons why Russell Crowe didn't want to accept the role at first is because the script was a mess. Every character was different. It was going to be about a guy named Narcissus, who historically had been the one to really kill and assassinate Commodus, the emperor.
Yeah. Okay.
He was a wrestler, and he killed him in the bathtub, apparently.
Oh, wow. That's really different from this.
Very different.
Yeah, no bathtubs.
Yeah.
No bathtubs, surprisingly. But apparently the script was a mess, and they were changing it every single day after shooting. Every single day, they'd all get together, and they'd all kind of like write something different about how it should go. So they had a script, and they were trying to make it work as they went. In fact, Ridley Scott joined the project without having read the script at all. He was pitched this movie by, there was a painting that he was shown of the stadium, and the emperor pointing his thumb down, communicating that the gladiator should kill the other person. And he's like, I'm in. He just saw that one.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, this one painting just made Ridley Scott want to join and direct this project.
Oh my gosh. I almost wonder, okay, I used to have a background picture on my work laptop, and it was of that, what you just described, like a gladiator standing over a fallen opponent, and he's looking up at the emperor, and the emperor's holding his thumb out. I almost wonder if it's the same picture.
It
That
might
would be
be
crazy.
because it wasn't made for the movie or anything. It was just like one of these ancient, or not ancient Rome. It was like a painting of ancient Rome, and that idea that really just sparked Ridley Scott's imagination. So everybody joined, and they didn't know what this movie would really be. They were going off of something more vague. I think that's it.
This
Sorry,
one here?
Dan just pulled it up, and like
It's called the Pollice Verso, if anyone's interested. It's in the Phoenix Art Museum. Oddly
really.
enough. That's what it says. Credit Phoenix Art Museum. But it's this, yeah, it's a gladiator standing over this guy. He's like stepping on his neck, and he's looking up at the crowd, and the crowd's like throwing their thumbs up and thumbs down.
And I'm just looking at this painting, like they definitely have costumes that look like that. And the stadium setup is very similar. Mike,
Oh
are you looking at?
yeah. I'm looking at it here. Yeah, I've seen this before.
Yeah, definitely gonna cut most of this out and link this picture down below. People can see what we're talking about. But yeah,
We might want to verify that this is the picture he was.
I don't care. I'm gonna link this picture anyway. This is the picture we're looking at. So
Well, it's a cool picture either way.
yeah.
Yeah, it was a good background.
Either way, Ridley Scott looked at something like this and said, "I'm going to make a movie." But yeah, it was just a mess every day, constantly changing. Which is also probably why they decided to make every scene so epic. Because if you're just focused in the moment of like, how do we make this scene as good as we can right now, with what's going to happen the next day, like, of course you're going to come up with the best that you can at the time, even if it's not really realistic.
Yeah, you can trade epicness for reality any time of the day, and I'll be happy.
Oh, yeah. All right, so who else we got in here? John Mathiasen, music video cinematographer turned film cinematographer, with film credits in Phantom of the Opera, Logan, King Arthur, and Legend of the Sword. Joaquin Phoenix as Commodus. I think this is Joaquin Phoenix's first big budget movie role.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Like, you're a Joaquin Phoenix fan. What had he been in before? Do you know?
This is the first movie I saw him in. Did The Village come out before or after this?
Oh, definitely after.
Okay.
Yeah, this was the first. I know for sure this was the first big budget movie. I don't know if he had been in a lot of stuff prior, but yeah, this solidified my image of Joaquin Phoenix. Far more incestuous than I would want my first impression of anyone to be.
I mean, he'd been in a lot of stuff before this. He'd been in like Murder, She Wrote and Alfred Hitchcock Presents, all sorts of stuff. The new Leave It to Beaver TV series, but I think this was the first big thing. I mean, it comes out even before Signs a couple years later.
His first credit is Seven Brides for Seven Brothers TV series.
Oh boy,
which I did not know existed. I'll have to check it out.
And he's only in the Christmas song.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely fair to say that this is his big breakthrough. Like, this is what puts him on the board. This is what everybody notices him for. This is the first movie I ever saw him in, and Joaquin Phoenix is one of those actors. If I see he's in a movie, I will watch the movie just for him. And rarely am I disappointed for that. He's phenomenal.
I definitely wasn't disappointed by this. He's very compelling, if very strange. And like I said, far too incestuous for me. Like, I don't know why anybody would do that. But like, he really pulls off this weird character. This guy he's mad that his father doesn't love him. He's jealous of Maximus for getting his father's love, and he's kind of in some ways kind of whiny, kind of bratty, but kind of elevated. Like, he's not just that. He's not just like a whiny aristocrat. Like, I think he's got something more that he's trying to achieve with Rome. He's like, it's like a corruption of Marcus Aurelius's ideas to some degree. And like the incestuousness and the murderousness that he has, and he pulls it all off to make him like a believable, kind of realistic, if overly dramatic character. So I really like this performance.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think that's his biggest strength, is that he's able to pull off being really whiny, and right, he has his dad issues where his dad wasn't there for him, and he like holds that against him, and he's kind of a coward. He even mentions that at one point, like, I'm courageous, even if not on the battlefield. But at the same time, he's dangerous. Like, he kills his father. That scene where he's essentially looking for his father's approval. His father apologizes, and you think that everything's resolved between them, and then he just suffocates his father. It makes you realize, like, it's not just a wimpy, spoiled brat, right? He's not just a spoiled brat that is a coward. He's willing to do whatever it takes. He is ambitious. Like he says, like, that's one of my virtues. I'm ambitious. I love that scene where he lists all of his quote unquote virtues. It's great, but I think he plays the balance between being like scummy, cowardly, and slimy, but also really dangerous and really evil, really cruel. He just plays that balance really well.
And oddly high-minded. Like, this, I love the goal of like trying to make the people of Rome, his children, run to him as a father. Like, his whole goal is to have everybody in Rome love him. Like, you realize that's a very selfish goal, but also like that doesn't seem bad on the outset.
It's kind of like Michael Scott when he says he wants to have 100 children so he can have 100 friends. Like, well, there's something that isn't wrong about that, but it's mostly wrong.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like Marcus, like, you're right, Jesse. Like, it's a corruption of the dream of Marcus Aurelius. There was a dream that was Rome, right? Like, Marcus Aurelius wants to teach Rome to stand up and like walk on its own without an emperor. And that's finally like his last desire is to give it to Maximus so Maximus can pass it on to the people. But then we've got this corruption of the son that he did not raise well, who thinks like, what I needed from my father was, just to give me like bread and circuses. And so I'm going to give that to all of the people of Rome as well, which is to just like make them more like dependent and whatnot. Never be able to escape from the clutches of the politicians.
But I also like when he first pitches the idea, like earlier in the movie when Marcus Aurelius had been talking about it, talking about like passing over control from the emperor to the Senate. He said it's the idea of Rome, and the idea of Rome is a whisper. If you say it too loud, it'll vanish and disappear. And then Commodus says something very similar when he's pitching the idea of the games, right? He's like, the Rome is an idea. He's pitching the same thing, that it's like, it's not tangible. Rome is not that, it's not really concrete. So you can kind of manipulate it as you see fit. Mm-hmm. And I love the idea of him, of both of them taking the opposite approach to this idea of what Rome should be.
Yeah. I want to talk about that more when we get into questions, because I do have a lot to say about that.
Because right now we're talking about Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah. Just pull it off. Honestly, guys, like, this is the coolest role here. Like, I mean, the most interesting role. Like, he's the weirdest guy, right? Like Russell Crowe does a great job as Maximus, but I mean, Maximus is easy, comparatively, right? Like, don't you feel for Commodus? And like, how difficult is that? Like, you kind of feel for him. You're like, oh yeah, it sucks to like not feel. I don't know. And then like he becomes crazy. You're like, that's not okay.
Yeah.
Just adding on, like, this is a great role.
Oh yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is funny that Russell Crowe's. I think we're going to talk about this more later, but Russell Crowe is the one that won Best Actor for this. When it really does seem like in some ways, a straightforward action hero role.
Yeah. He doesn't have a whole lot of dimensions.
I mean, personally. He cries over his wife. Like, he's tough and he's sensitive about his wife. That seems to be the two dimensions that he's got.
Right. And he has the rage and the vengeance and all that. Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah. There's more dimensions, but it's pretty... All right, you know what? I take it back. He does have more stuff going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd never take this. I wouldn't take the Oscar away from Russell Crowe, but I'm just saying, like what a great job that Joaquin Phoenix did here.
Yeah. So. I wasn't trying to talk back about that. I've been thinking a lot, like, did Russell Crowe deserve an Oscar for this? But like I said, we will talk about that more later. All right, next we have Connie Nielsen as what's her name?
Lucilla or Lucia?
Lucia?
Lucilla.
Lucilla.
It's like straight up Lucilla,
Lucilla.
right?
It's Commodus's sister who's hitting on the entire movie. Oh man, their scenes are really creepy together. They're really uncomfortable, but she does a good job in them. I kind of like her character, like going through the Senate and like having her wits about her at all times, to the point where you're not sure if you can trust her, but it turns out like she really is just focusing on trying to save her kid, basically. Like she is, I think she's pretty good.
Yeah, I feel like she is a totally relatable character where it's like she's in this impossible situation. She just wants to protect her son and keep him from the corruption and just the physical violence or the physical danger that he's in, being the heir to the throne. I think she's a very compelling character, and it's a difficult role to pull off, like to play the sister of this emperor who's being hit on all the time. And that's extremely, difficult. And then to play like this ex-lover of Maximus and also a mother of the son. It's like, that's, I don't know. I was very impressed, and every time she was on the screen, it was like, I know she's going to be great. And like, yeah, I really liked her.
Yeah. Anything to add to that, Mike?
No, dude. She's great.
So next up, we have Jaimon Hansu, who is Juba? They never even really say his name, maybe like one time.
Yeah.
But he's the guy who befriends Russell Crowe from the get-go. And surprisingly, a black guy that does not die, who's like friends to the main protagonist. Like when I watch this movie again, it's like, oh yeah, he's going to die because he's black. No, it doesn't happen. I thought that was kind of cool that he lives at the end. In fact, the final scene is him.
I mean, that's like what happens in Spartacus, right? Is the African American, or not African American, just be the African man that is killed, or that befriends the main protagonist, ends up being killed because he's a friend that's willing to die for his friend.
Yeah.
And it kind of lends more, I guess you could say, weight or more impact to his mission, So I agree. I actually thought he was gonna die as well, in a sad, like dramatic way. And no, he's just a great fighter, and he's a great friend, and he's got great lines.
And he makes it to the end. Yes.
Not yet. Not yet.
Great line.
Best line.
It is.
Yeah, he's also, what'd you guys say, in Blood Diamond?
Yeah, he's in Blood Diamond. He's in The Kingsman.
Oh yeah,
he's in A Quiet Place Part 2. Oh. Do you remember him being in A Quiet Place Part 2?
What? Oh, is he the guy that dies?
Or is he on the island, maybe?
Yeah.
He's on the island. Yeah. That's right. I forgot about that. His role, his name is Man on Island. That's great. He's in, so I don't know why, but I've been thinking about this movie a lot lately. He's in The Island with Ian McGregor and Scarlett Johansson. Do you guys remember that?
That is a good movie. That is actually a good movie.
Yeah. I was about to say what the movie was, and then I remembered it's a twist, so I'm not going to say that. But yeah, I remember that movie.
I've seen that movie like 6 or 7 times for some weird reason, and I don't remember it at all.
I saw it like 7 years ago and loved it. So that's what I'm basing my opinion on. It's very possible it's not as good as I remember it, because my opinions do change semi-frequently.
Yeah, I remember.
Don't tell my wife.
That's cool. Yeah, he's in a lot of big stuff though, like Guardians of the Galaxy, Amistad. He's a big actor.
Yeah. We also got Oliver Reed as Proximo, who died right before the final shots. They decided to not reshoot his character because it cost too much money. And instead, they inserted the scene where Proximo is stabbed and dies. They kind of spliced that together with a body double.
It's the only time that Ridley Scott has done something because it cost too much money.
I don't think it was Scott. I think it was the studio or the producer or whatever.
I know.
Because Scott would have been like, all right, I guess he's out.
I also
really good at spending money.
Yeah. I also like to think they did it like to honor the actor as well.
Oh, yeah.
It's the scene where he's stabbed to death, but also the scene before that where he goes to Maximus while he's behind the bars, and he like gives him the keys to escape. I watched
That's
a whole video.
CGI?
It is CGI, but it's not like what they're using now in like Disney and stuff. It's more like they took scenes that he was already in and they like basically pasted his face into the scene, and it's flawless in my mind. Like, I didn't even know this was the case.
It's really, really well done.
Yeah.
It to me, it's amazing that they pulled this off.
Yeah.
I had no idea until I like read up on this that they had done this, and to do it in 2000. Like, people are still trying to do this unsuccessfully with deep fakes and all that. So,
or with what's Leia from the last Star Wars movie? Man, I'm blanking on both of those names.
Oh, Carrie Fisher.
Carrie Fisher in The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
So they did the same thing where they had like previous footage of her and spliced it together. That was atrocious. Man, they should have looked back to Gladiator to get some gems.
Yeah, seriously.
But yeah,
he died of a heart attack in a bar after downing 3 bottles of Captain Morgan's Jamaica rum, 8 bottles of German beer, numerous doubles of famous grass whiskey and Hennessy cognac, and beating 5 much younger Royal Navy sailors at arm wrestling. His bar bill for that final lunch time totaled 270 Maltese lira, almost $600.
Whoa. Apparently he was like a really heavy drinker, and Ridley Scott had made him promise that he would not drink during the week, and he's like, that's fine as long as I get to drink on the weekends. So he died on a Sunday.
Dang. That makes me sad, dude.
Yeah.
That's tragic.
Yeah. It's
But I mean, I feel like he would have been happy with that way of going out to a degree. He beat 6 younger men at arm wrestling. 5 younger men.
That is a way.
That's a way.
It's a way to go out. I did see that originally they were going to have his, like, the end of his character have a whole nother scene to it where he's captured by Commodus or by the Praetorian Guard, and they actually force him to fight Maximus in the Coliseum, like a fight to the death, and that Maximus ends up having to kill him to survive and to, go on with his mission, almost in like a Spartacus type way, where it's like you put friends against friends as a final, scene of, of drama, of, building to the final actual enemy versus friend. You put friend against friend. And it's, I thought that was a really almost another to add to the tragedy of the actor passing is, this could have been a really, really great scene as well.
Yeah. I think that might have elevated this movie to insane greatness. Because that would have made Commodus an even better villain than he ended up being. And also would have made like an incredibly emotionally tough decision with Maximus that I kind of would have liked to see. So Oliver Reed passed away, but man, his Proxima performance is great. Yeah. And then last on our list that we wanted to shout out is Hans Zimmer. He wrote the soundtrack for this movie, and I've got to say, watching this again, I did not like the soundtrack. I don't
really? You didn't like the soundtrack?
No, I think it's
I was thinking you would love it.
Actively doesn't fit some scenes at times. Like there's that scene when Commodus is emperor and he's coming home, it's like triumphant epic music. It's like, this is weird. People are like knowing he's a murderer and think he's a tyrant and are booing him, and there's this weird like epic chorus going on. I didn't like that. It didn't fit. And then also like the Pirates of the Caribbean soundtrack was kind of woven in there. I know this came before Pirates of the Caribbean.
I heard the exact theme in the opening battle. I was like, holy shit, this is Pirates of the Caribbean. It comes directly from this movie. Lifted from Gladiator. But, it's okay. It's fine. There's a lot of people in Pirates of the Caribbean that come from this movie too. But
I also heard some parts of Lion King in here.
I heard parts of Dune in here. I was like, whoa, really? There's the early bits of Dune going on. Some of like the sort of things.
Oh
like
yeah,
right?
Yeah, like at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
kind of throughout, whenever things were sort of weird and like religious.
It's so interesting to me how like a composer like Hans Zimmer he almost plays off of himself. Obviously, it's like clearly with Pirates of the Caribbean, he took like sections of his previous music and just put it into Pirates of the Caribbean. And I almost feel like the soundtrack to Pirates of the Caribbean is just incredible and so fun that I feel like that almost ruined some of my experience of this movie.
Yeah.
Just because I remember loving, like, the opening sequence is phenomenal, but I remember loving the music to it, listening to it on my, my iPod. And I just remember this soundtrack being just one of my favorite soundtracks to listen to in high school. And I don't think I could now because I can only hear, like you guys were saying, like Pirates of the Caribbean or his other works that came after this.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I feel like Hans Zimmer, he outdoes himself every time, but it almost leaves like a little bit of bitterness in his previous work where you're like, oh, but that was like an unfinished Pirates of the Caribbean song.
Yeah. And also, like, it's weird to associate like a fun action adventure Jack Sparrow movie with Gladiator, which is like, I don't know, it's supposed to be far more like
less fun.
Hardcore.
Yeah, hardcore, yeah.
Yeah, like that music, like to use the same thing for both, like a hardcore, like fight to the death series of fights, and to have that theme pasted over with the same thing that Jack Sparrow's doing his crazy antics with, it strikes a weird chord with me. What do you think about hearing it, Mike?
Oh yeah, I mean, same. It was weird. It took me right out of the movie. I was like, "This pirates!" like what the hell?
Yeah.
He stole it from himself. Well, I don't know how I feel about this, but wait, there's two people that we haven't talked about that I just want to mention here. Sure. And the first is Derek Jacobi shows up here, and I forgot he was in this. Derek Jacobi is, I don't think that you're allowed to make a movie set in Rome without Derek Jacobi, because he has played like every senator, and he has played Claudius from I, Claudius, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but the Emperor Claudius makes an appearance in this movie and like a story, and like you can't make a movie about ancient Rome without Derek Jacobi, and he's here, and it was great to see him again. I watched a lot of stuff with him in it as a kid, because he does a lot of like these old historical movies. He was in like the Cadfile murder mysteries, which we watched all the time as kids. I don't really know why, but that was like ancient British murder mysteries, and he's a monk who's like a detective.
A monk who's a detective?
Yeah, it's cool, man. It's cool stuff.
That is pretty wild.
It's like the War of the Roses is going on. I haven't thought about this in years. And like he's trying to like not die and also figure out like who killed people when everyone's getting killed by people. I don't know. It's
wow.
I've got a lot of love for Derek Jacobi myself. I mean, he's the king in Cinderella, right?
Yeah.
But you know, he's done a million things. And
the live action Cinderella, right?
Yes, the live action Cinderella.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot
not the James Corden Cinderella.
Okay.
I'm seeing a lot of BBC stuff, but then also a lot of Shakespeare stuff.
Yeah.
I almost wonder if he started it like in the theater, if he was a theater actor. He kind of strikes me as someone that could have like started his career in theater.
Yeah, I think so. And I think he did a lot of those, like, he's in a lot of, like, the Kenneth Branagh movies, I think. I think he's in, like, Henry V and stuff, but he's also in, I feel like, a lot of those original, like, swords and sandals sorts of epics way back when. So I wanted to mention him. I also want to mention Richard Harris, who plays... who plays Marcus Aurelius. Richard Harris has showed up on this before, and he was in Unforgiven. He's also the original Albus Dumbledore from the series but he tragically passed away before he was able to do any more of them. He's a great actor. I love it when he shows up in something. And I love Marcus Aurelius. He does a good job.
We know. We know you love Marcus Aurelius and Richard Harris, so this must have been just a real treat for you.
I think it all just stems from seeing this movie, you know? It's just like, oh, well, this guy is the best and he plays the best dude. So here we go.
Is this where your love for Marcus Aurelius came from? Is this movie?
I mean, I don't know if I'd say I have like a I don't know. Yeah, sort of. I mean, it's what got me interested in this sort of period of Roman history. Not that I'm any sort of expert on it, but
am I wrong in saying that you've talked about Marcus Aurelius on the podcast, completely unrelated to this movie, many times?
It's because we did Unforgiven that one time, you know, and so I talked about how he played Marcus Aurelius in Gladiator, and like Marcus Aurelius is really interesting, and he's got this whole thing like the Meditations, which are all about like how to, on top of being an emperor who conquered the known world, like or kept the known world conquered, he also is like the textbook on Stoicism, which is interesting. I mean, how many people do you know who are emperors and also like have affected the world with their thought as well?
I mean, I think that's what I loved about his character, and then also his relationship with Maximus. That Maximus is kind of that like classic stoic, like perfect man, or like the noble man, where he, you know, he believes in Rome, his allegiance is to Rome, but then also his ultimate joy in life, or his kind of like what he's working towards is just to be a farmer and to raise his family and have his farm. And, like those kinds of ideas of like the luxurious life is to just be a farmer in a, you know, very humble lifestyle is very stoic, right? That's like the Roman classical idea of a perfect man, is this like a man who has conquered himself and then conquered the world enough to just raise his crops and have his family. And I love that about Maximus's character, and Marcus Aurelius is kind of like that idealist who wasn't able to live the ideal, but was always kind of like pining towards it. And I thought that was a really cool feature in this movie, especially in the earlier scenes, like after the battle and in the tent and all that. Some of those conversations I had a huge appreciation for this time around that I did not have in high school, because I just wanted the battle sequences. So I love that aspect of it for sure. I guess I could get into my nostalgia for this movie. I think I saw this when I was like 13 or 14. I didn't see it when it first came out. It was one of those movies that all my friends were saying, like, have you seen Gladiator? And it was killing me that I hadn't seen it, but I eventually did see it, I think when I was a teenager at some point earlier on, and I absolutely loved it. I thought it was the best movie that's ever been made. I thought it was everything that cinema should ever be. And like, I couldn't get enough of this. Like this was back, we still had VHSs of things back then. And I just remember, like, me and my brothers, we'd rewind this and rewatch the action sequences all the time. Like, we would watch that opening battle sequence. I've probably seen that opening battle sequence like twice as much as the actual movie.
You knew like the timestamps for everything. Right. Like, oh, this is when like the dude gets his head cut off. This is when he like the sword gets stuck in the tree.
Oh, here comes a volley of fire arrows.
Oh, we would do this like shorter movie edit where we would just fast forward through all the dialogue and just watch the fighting. And like, yeah, it's like about 45 minutes of the movie. That's how I know that. But it's like, we loved the fighting in this movie. We thought it was the best thing that's ever been made. And in a lot of ways, it holds up. Like the fighting in this is very brutal. It's very believable. It doesn't feel like it's overly edited or overly cut. Like a lot of movies from this time period can feel that way. you watch it again and you're like, yeah, they cut 3 times to, to make it look real, but it's not real. In this movie, it all flows. It's all very well choreographed. The fighting is phenomenal, but also, yeah, the dialogue in it. Obviously, that's always something that you appreciate more as you get older. Mm-hmm. I'm sure when I'm like 80, I'll probably fast forward all through all the fighting scenes and just watch the dialogue. But yeah, so that's my first impressions of this. Is just, it was, in Mike's words, it was seminal to my teenage years. And I loved it. Yeah. What about you guys?
Yeah, man, this was seminal, dude. Like, this movie is, I think I was also 13 or 14 when I saw it. And I remember so I had these friends. I've talked about them before. We did a lot together growing up. But at some point, they were kind of like watching, like, I don't know what it was. They were like looking after this person's house. They weren't living there, but like they'd go over, every day for like several hours at a time. And it was like a cool pool that we would go in. It was a nice house. I'm not really sure what was going on, but so we go over there and we'd just sort of hang out. Did
the owners know what was going on?
I think so. I mean, this was the mom who was like in charge of this whole deal, and she would just like bring us there. I think that they knew what was going on.
Good story.
The pool was amazing. It was like they had a pool table, but like a table in the pool. And and I remember like my friends trying to explain this to me, and I just could not understand what was going on until I finally went there and I saw like, oh, it's like a swim up bar. I have a hard time with visualizing, I guess. And like, oh no, there was like a window in the pool, and like there was a bar below it. This was a really nice pool. But one day we were just like, we weren't allowed to go swimming for some reason because it was raining maybe, and we were just like hanging out inside, and their mom was like, oh, just put on a movie. And so we were sort of looking around like, oh, what movies do they have? Like, oh, here's, like whatever. Like, oh, here's Gladiator. Oh, we've heard about Gladiator before. Like, hey, Mom, can we watch Gladiator? She's like, sure, whatever, leave me alone. So that's how we watched Gladiator the first time. We turned it on. And, oh, it was amazing. Blew our minds. We weren't able to finish it. We got like halfway through and she came in and sees like the head getting chopped off of like the pig man. Yeah. It's like, oh my gosh, what are you watching? Like, we need to go. And so we sort of started talking about it on the way home. She's like, well, I guess we're going to talk to your dad about this to my friends. And he was like, all right, I guess they're old enough to watch this movie. So we had a movie night like that night to watch the whole thing.
Good job, Dad.
Yeah, it was great. This movie, I mean, like the fight scenes were things that I'd never seen before, and just blew my mind. But also, like the combination of battle with this hefty battle sort of stuff with this dialogue that I never really encountered before. Man, it was just mind-boggling, and I feel like this movie is what I've been looking for in every movie I've seen ever since, to a degree, more or less.
Like, that's really, it's really strange that you stumbled upon that in somebody's house randomly. But besides that, I think my nostalgia is kind of similar to yours. I remember it was a big deal in my family though beforehand. So like, I think this movie was 8 when it came out I was 8 when this movie came out. And a little too young to see it then, but my parents both went and saw it in theaters together, and they loved it. It was one of the few movies that they really liked and would like recommend to everybody. They love the family aspect and the idea of a guy who's like, and it's an entertaining movie, and it's a guy who's killing, but he doesn't want to, who's like not doing it like for the sake of just killing everybody. So it became like a big deal in my house to watch it, but I was too young. So around 13 and 14, I finally was able to watch the whole thing. Like, I'd seen bits and pieces over the years. So I saw it, and I was blown away. it was really bloody at the time. That was the bloodiest thing I had seen. And also like this plot, this story of this guy who's lost his entire family, and he was at the top. He was about to become emperor, and he falls. I think the tagline for the movie is right. A general who becomes a slave who becomes a gladiator.
A slave who became a gladiator. A gladiator who defied an emperor.
Yeah. Yeah, right?
Just get some chills down my spine, Mike.
Like that. But that idea, that really basic idea is really, really compelling. Even now, like I've seen some movies of, like John Wick or the other spy movie, Bob Odenkirk.
Nobody,
right? Yeah,
spy
same basic
movie.
Yeah, he was a spy. He was a spy. He was something.
I don't know about that, but whatever. Keep going.
He was a guy. He was a guy who did things. And those movies, there's a lot of those, or there's a lot like Harry Potter, and Harry Potter, you're a chosen one. You come out from nothing and you become great. Or there's the John Wick sort of movies where you were something, and then now at the beginning of the movie, you're like nothing again, and slowly you're realizing, oh, this guy's a real badass, and there's a real change or like impetus that's in them that has been overcome. That now they can go kick some ass. But in this movie, right, what I find so compelling is like it's really just circumstances around him that are changing, and then he's constantly like rising to the occasion and kicking ass, doing the best you can do for being a slave and a gladiator. Like, what else do you do? I guess you just go over and conquer whoever is in front of you. That's what you were as a general. Now do it as a gladiator. And I love that idea. I love, I like that it's not like his slow rise. It's like he's always been there. It's like, and then circumstances random fall him. He's just making his circumstances catch up with where he is. I find that super compelling. It's kind of similar to the Hamlet tale too, with the revenge story that I think everybody can relate to some degree. So that story of revenge, that story of taking back what was yours, super compelling. I love that.
My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius, commander of the armies of the North. Yeah, it's so good. Yeah. It's so good.
So
father
good.
To a murdered husband. Damn it. Let's cut that all out. Cut that all out. Damn it.
See, that's why he was best actor, because
not me.
He can say all those lines.
Yeah, he can say those lines.
What if they had
no Oscar for you, Mike?
Yeah,
no Oscar for me today.
What if they had stuck with the name Narcissus? Like, I am Narcissus. No wonder why Russell Crowe made them change that name. It's so much better this way.
Narcissus.
Hey everyone, jumping in real quick to tell you about something I'm personally very excited for. It's Sir's Furniture. SIRRS Furniture. Now, if you've been listening to our podcast for a long time, then you know about Sir. We did the crossover with the Before Sunset trilogy. He's been on a couple of our episodes. I've been on a couple of his. He's a dear friend, and he happens to make, besides a fantastic podcast, beautiful custom-made wood cutting boards of whatever flavor of wood you want and whatever kind of design you want. It's beautiful custom work, and with summertime coming up, I know that I'm going to be out barbecuing. I'm going to be out going to birthday parties. I'm going to be going to a couple of weddings. And it's sometimes hard to pick, what to give somebody, what to give a friend of mine. Sir's Furniture is your one-stop shop for cutting boards, charcuterie boards, coasters, anything that you can really think of that is handmade, handcrafted, and designed woodcraft. You've been using a small plastic board for years. You have. Or, take a look in your kitchen at those dried out twigs that you call cutting boards. And go to sirsfurniture.com, SIRRS furniture.com/NYFM and check out the wide selection of beautiful handcrafted wooden cutting boards that are on display there. Now, listen, let me tell you, a little bit ago, when Mike welcomed in his third child to the world, Jesse and I banded together and we pitched in on one of the big Bertha. I think it's called the Martha. of the cutting boards. It was big. It had a nice channel around the side, and we put Mike's last name right in the middle. And this board was gorgeous. I was upset that I didn't have Mike's last name so that I couldn't just keep it for myself. It was the single most beautiful cutting board I've ever seen. So that whether you love to cook, barbecue, or just need that perfect gift, Sir has what you need. So for 10% off, use our link, Sir's Furniture. That's SIRRS furniture.com/NYFM. That'll tell him that we sent you.
All right, so that's all of our nostalgia and first impressions. Yeah. I think it runs pretty deep with all of us. But now, like, passing it on to our kids, and when and will we show it to them? Mike, are you gonna? Are you gonna show this to your
Absolutely,
to your kids?
Man. I can't wait to show. I actually showed it to my son already. He woke up while I was watching this, and he dug it, and then he like passed out. He was like, I think it was he woke up during the slave breakout scene, and he was sort of like sitting on my lap. And he would like look at the screen, and then he'd look back at me with sort of a bit of a worried look on his face, like, these guys going to be okay? Like, I don't know if they're going to get out of here alive. And then when Cicero starts like hanging or whatever, he just sort of like turned to me and collapsed on my chest, like, this is a lot of emotions, and fell asleep.
So... Wait, how old's your son?
He's 9 months.
9 months? Yeah. Okay.
So I'm interpreting here.
I don't remember any of it, so yeah.
He won't remember any of it. But he'll remember the feelings or something. I don't know. I'm definitely going to show this to my kids when they get older. I'm not going to show it to them now. But I mean, I definitely think like 13 or 14, this is a great movie. It's a little gory, yeah, but I think it's okay. I think you can handle it. I was able to handle it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. How about you, Dan?
Yeah, I think so I grew up with a lot of the, like, what they call like the sword and sandals movies, like Ben-Hur, Spartacus, 10 Commandments. Like, I grew up with a lot of these movies that I watched very young. Like, there's not a whole lot of violence in those movies. There will be scenes that maybe my parents would skip when I was like really young, but I just grew up with those movies always being around. And I think, like, maybe this is me just projecting on my experience, but I feel like those movies prepped me for watching Gladiator in a lot of ways, where I appreciated Gladiator a lot more because of what it did, like what it updated, what it brought that was new and, 21st century, man. Like, it's the fight sequences are seamless, and the blood looks more real, and the, everything about it feels more fresh and up to date. But it's really like a lot of the storylines, a lot of the story beats are from like Ben-Hur, right? Where Ben-Hur plays this essentially like a high class lord who ends up losing his family and becoming a slave and having to fight back, coming back from the dead and, back from slavery to reclaim what he's lost. And then Spartacus, of course, like a similar story of a slave kind of rising from ash to stardom, as a gladiator and creating this, gladiator revolt. I think in a lot of ways, those movies as a younger kid prepped me to watch The Gladiator and appreciate it and love it all the more. And so I think I'll probably do the same for my kids. Is I want to show them these types of movies at a young age, and then build up to Gladiator as kind of, and I'm stepping on a future question that I want to ask you guys, but I think this is like the greatest sword and sandals movie of all time. So that's kind of what I want to build up for my kids, is like, this is it. This is the best type of this genre.
Sure.
And so definitely like 13, 14 is going to be the oldest I let them get before they've seen Gladiator. Yeah. What about you, Jesse?
Even with all the violence and stuff?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like if I have a kid that's more sensitive to violence, I will take that case by case. But my son doesn't seem to be disturbed too much by the cartoon violence that he sees in movies currently.
Okay.
And yeah, like unless he is shows some sort of like real sensitivity to that stuff. I know that at 13 I was like, I couldn't wait to see this kind of stuff, and I, even if it scared me, I like wouldn't let it show. Like I wouldn't, so I definitely think, yeah, 13, 14, I'll be sitting down with my kids, popcorn and all, and showing them Gladiator.
Just watching some heads getting chopped off and rolling.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think my favorite scene, and this is like, I had to say this as my perfect scene or my favorite scene because like teenage me always looked for this scene. And this is the scene that stuck with me. Like every time I think of this movie, this is the scene I remember. It's the scene where Maximus is fighting in the Coliseum against this enemy that's supposed to just wipe him off the face of the earth. It's this, massive, massive guy that he's like supposed to be the great warrior of the Coliseum. And Commodus has set up the fight, specifically to kill Maximus. And there's tigers that come out during the fight. This was everything that I wanted to see as a 13-year-old boy watching a Gladiator movie. I wanted to see animals coming into the arena, attacking guys and biting. And yeah, that scene to me is like just the epitome of a gladiator fight like that.
Yeah.
That's everything I wanted to see. And I don't think, like, now as an adult, I don't know that it's the best scene in the movie. I actually don't think it is, but it's kind of like, because because of what I just said, it's perfectly a scene made for this movie for my generation. And it's the one that sticks with me well after. And I've watched videos about like how they made the scene with these tigers and how they made it look like the tigers were right next to Russell Crowe, even though they were never that close to him. It's a feat of VFX as well in that aspect. It's just, I was a little worried about this scene watching it recently because I was like, I hope the tigers don't look cheesy, and I hope this scene doesn't like fall flat. And it doesn't. Like it really,
they look real. Yeah,
they
are
real.
real.
Yeah, I mean the tigers are real, but I was worried that
the
like
danger feels real too.
Right.
Like, it feels like real danger. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And that's what I was worried, is that like the danger wouldn't feel real because it would look a little like, oh, I can see that's like, they pasted Russell Crowe onto the scene with the tiger, but it didn't look at all like that. It looked totally real, and I loved it. It's a great scene, and it's the scene that I will continue to think of when I think of this movie, even though there are probably better scenes out there.
Yeah.
The way like he takes the back of the axe and drives it into the guy's foot, and the blood gushes out. I will never forget that. Like that was an image that just seared itself into my memory forever.
Mm-hmm.
Just like that final, like that was what was needed. He had to do that. That was the moment of advantage that he gained on this guy, and he finally won. It was
and also I love the adversary too. Like he's like this gladiator that has come out of retirement. He comes in riding on a chariot, and then he has that really freaky mask. Like it's this giant helmet that you've seen before, and then he has like the visor that comes down. That it's a mask that covers his face.
It's got like a tear.
Makes it unforgettable. And then, of course, like there's what happens right afterwards, where he knocks the guy down, and then Commodus gives him the thumbs down to kill him, and he just doesn't
kill him. It's so awesome.
And the crowd that was cheering for him to kill him is suddenly saying like, "Maximus unmerciful, yeah, Maximus!" And they all start cheering his name again. It's an incredible scene.
Yeah. I did like that part of it a little bit more. Like, oh wow, like the people of Rome, they're not just out for bloodshed. They actually love the fact that he spared this guy after completely destroying him. He could have just cut his head off and everybody would have cheered, right? But he did like the unexpected thing. He defied the emperor and chose mercy. And the fact that the people of Rome cheered even louder for that is a cool like plot device to show that the people of Rome, aren't just these bloodthirsty, super shallow people, right? They actually do love a real virtue of mercy when they see it.
Or at least they love the drama and the emotional roller coaster. Like
they love a good twist.
Yeah, they love a good twist.
Yeah, I would love to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, let's later. Yeah. I've been thinking about that. Like our question, we need to adjust our questions maybe a little bit.
Yeah, I will. I'll definitely be adjusting mine. But Mike, what is your favorite scene in this epic of a movie?
Well, I was gonna say the opening battle scene. Like that scene is just like it. For lack of a better word, it's seminal, man. It changed the world that I lived in from the moment I saw it. That was the first thing that you see, and it's incredible, and it's still incredible. But one thing I noticed this time around is it starts off, like the movie starts off before the battle starts with Russell Crowe like staring at a bird, and then the bird flies away. Right, like he's thinking about home, and then he sees the bird, and then like it cuts to real life, and he sees the bird, and the bird flies away. And that exact same shot is in 3:10 to Yuma. That's the shot that like the same look that he has. Like the first time we meet him in 3:10 to Yuma is when he's drawing the bird. Remember,
and the bird flies away,
and the bird flies when he watches the bird fly. And it's like I saw, I was like, wait, I've seen that before. Like this has happened before. And it was 3:10 to Yuma, which was interesting. Weird. But I'm going to say my favorite scene is actually that scene where they go to take him out and kill him in the snow. Because, and like, I don't think it's the best scene in the movie either, like the best thing in the movie, but my friends and I spent countless hours reenacting this scene. Like, the frost, sometimes it makes the blade stick. Oh, it's so cool. And the way, like,
the
he
sword
throws the sword through the guy that like sticks through him. It's incredible.
Love how you hear the sword come like lands in him. It's like there's this crazy assassin that's after you right now. It's an insane vibe. Like this guy's going to murder everybody around.
It's so cool. Like, and you really see this guy isn't just a general. He is the ultimate badass. Mm-hmm. It's truly. We just like yell out at each other at random, like "Put him in!" Because that's what he yells at people. I don't know why, but this was the scene that we would try, because it's like, okay, say you're in this situation, how do you get out? Yeah. Well, obviously, the first thing that you do is ask for an honorable death. Like that's the first thing you got to do when you're in this situation. Then you can whack the dude in the stomach/balls. And kill everybody. Like this is clearly the solution. Also, don't get caught in the cold with your blade undrawn. Like taught us valuable lessons.
Don't be out with the frost around.
I was curious if that's real. Is that a real like phenomenon that a blade can get stuck in the sheath?
I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to say as my source material, I have Gladiator, the movie.
Oh, right. Yeah. Oh, I forgot that it happens in Gladiator.
Yeah. It's a real thing. That's my favorite. Well, that's my favorite scene. I loved it. And I love watching it again, too. It's been a while since I saw the movie. And so, like, seeing it again, it was so fresh and new and just brought back all of these memories with my friends.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. That's awesome.
What about you, Jesse?
Jinx.
Yeah, my favorite scene then and now has always been the "Are you not entertained?" scene.
Oh yeah.
So this is back when they're in, I think, is it Zanzibar? I don't know.
Something like that. Yeah, it's like an ancient city.
Yeah, they're in a kind of a small town, and there's this small little stadium that they have, which they actually built next to a small town. I think in Morocco, to film all this stuff in. They built this thing, but there are two fights there. The first fight, he's you weren't even sure that he was actually going to fight, and then it turns out that he fought, and then everybody been all the people that were slaves were gonna die, and then he didn't. He fought his way out, and then the next time you see him fighting, he's going out again, and this time there are like 3 or 4 people against him, and it's just him. And they're all cheering for the Spaniard. Like the whole crowd is like, the Spaniard, Spaniard. And he just goes out and he wreaks havoc on like one guy after another. And then after chopping a guy's head off with 2 swords instead of 1, he takes 2 swords to do it. They're still cheering his name, and he tosses one into like the VIP stand, basically, and knocks over the guy's cup, and wine and spills everywhere, and just says, "Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?" And then the crowd goes quiet for a little bit, and they start cheering his name even louder. It's such an epic scene, but also it's always made me feel a little meta, because like I find that really entertaining, and I'm in the crowd. And I have to admit, when he says, "Are you not entertained?" I want to cheer louder for him as well. So like it's a really weird moment where I always realize like I am just a person in this stadium right now. And I just saw somebody's head get cut off like pretty brutally, and I am cheering for it. I've never known what to feel about this, but I always feel something, and it makes me a little uncomfortable.
Wow, you just got deep.
Can we talk about that a little bit? I feel like we keep sort of like skirting around that, but like this movie's saying a lot about like watching spectacles of violence for a movie that's very much a violent spectacle.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I'm just going to jump into my question for the movie then, because my question is kind of about this, and I had to communicate this over text, and I wasn't sure how to do it. But basically, the people, right? There's a huge thing about the people here. The people as represented by the Senate, and they're called the mob multiple times. Mm-hmm. Like they're just a mob. You just need to manipulate them. And there are these people that will celebrate violence, right? Like Commodus's whole plan is to like rile the people up because they love these games where people are killing each other. And he knows they'll love him for it. So I guess I want to talk about like, are these people like good? Like, I don't know what to think about it, because on the one hand, like it seems to be good that you want the Senate, right? Which is a representation of the people. That is Marcus Aurelius's like goal, right? To have the Senate, the people in charge of Rome. But this Rome is a mob. Like, is that a goal worth having? Is Marcus Aurelius right? Is it better to have a tyrant, or is it better to have a Senate when there's a mob that's basically running everything?
Tyrant all the way. That's me. No.
Maybe not tyrant. Let's say emperor, right? Like emperor, because obviously tyrant. I chose a very bad word. Tyrant is always bad, but emperor is not always bad.
Personally, I prefer dictator.
That's
my personal preference. Preferably, I'm the dictator.
That's a more politically correct way of saying tyrant.
Is it? No, it's not. Interesting. I learned something today, guys. I don't know. I don't know how to answer this question. Are the people of Rome worth saving? I feel like in the movie, it's like it's sort of taking it up that they are. It's just like saying like, yes, we want the people of Rome to be, ruled well. Rome should be ruled well. I guess it's sort of assuming that like you should have good governance, maybe. But I don't know. I don't know if that's really your question. Like, I mean, yeah. Like, hey, should people be ruled well? Like, well, I guess, yeah.
I mean, should they be ruling themselves? I think is the question, right? The Senate is an extension of the people, so should the people be ruling themselves, or do they need the firm hand of the emperor, or maybe someone like Maximus to come in and say, no, this is not what you guys should be doing?
I ever since you posted this question, are the people of Rome worth saving? I've been like questioning my watching of the movie pretty deeply. Like, there's a couple scenes that I think the movie is trying to like give us a hint at the answer to this. The one is the scene that we've already mentioned where Maximus, he grants mercy to to his opponent against the command of the emperor, and everybody cheers for it.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, we could just say, oh, they're just being like, they're just enjoying a twist or the drama or whatever. Like, but we could also say that that's like the movie showing us that they do love like a real virtue in their hero. Like they do love that he's merciful towards his opponent, you know, after these two guys are trying to kill each other for a long time. And like, it's actually a big deal that he chooses to let him live. Yeah. To spare him over the will of, you know, Caesar. Like that's a big deal. And it could have totally turned the mob against him. They could have been like, no, more blood, more blood. And if they were bloodthirsty, if that was their only imperative, they would have booed him. But they didn't. They cheered him, and they actually loved him more for it. I feel like that was the movie giving us a little hint into like, yes, they're all there for the bloodshed, but ultimately they do have an appreciation for the virtue of mercy. Another piece of it, I think that the movie's trying to like hint at is the fact that Maximus has total confidence that if he escapes from prison and basically walks into the camps of his army, they will 100% follow him. That they have a total loyalty towards him over their current generals or leaders because they know him. Like they trust him. They know that he's a just man, that he has the, you know, the greatest good of Rome at heart, that he's a humble man, that he's a good general. All of these virtues that they show in those first, you know, the first 30 minutes of the movie, he has total confidence that if he walks into that army, they will accept him and follow him. There's a certain level of like, well, if he has that confidence in his army, that means that there is a sense of what is just, what is right, what is Rome in the kind of idealistic take of Marcus Aurelius. So for me, those are like the two scenes in the movie where it shows that like, yes, the Roman people might be a mob. They might be unruly. They might be wanting bloodshed, but they still have redemptive characteristics. They still have, you know, an appreciation for those classic virtues of Roman philosophy and all that.
I guess, yeah. So you saying that also makes me realize maybe Marcus Aurelius's plan, because plan wasn't to get rid of the emperor and just establish a senate. His plan was to make Maximus the emperor and then abolish the emperor, right? And establish a senate. So Maximus is actually, like, he's seen Maximus as this key figure that has to transition and get the people to the point where they can govern themselves. So I think the part where he gives mercy to the guy that you were pointing out earlier. Before that, like Commodus, he was telling Maximus to kill the gladiator because the entire crowd was chanting, kill him, kill, you know. And he was giving in to the mob of Rome's like weakest impulses.
Right.
But Maximus, with this act of mercy, was able to raise these people up a degree to say, no, you actually want this. This is actually better. And they agree with that. And him going to his army, I think, is also very similar to that. Like he's told like they are under like Roman control right now, but he knows if he walks in, he is a better option. They're going to follow him instead of whatever usurpers are there. So, yeah, I like the idea of Maximus being the intermediary step between like the evil emperor and getting the people to actually rule themselves. But it seems like he might be able to do because he is a good enough person to make that happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like in this movie, too, it's like emphasized several times that Commodus is a tyrannical ruler who rules by fear primarily. And I mean, like, we see him slaughter, you know, most of the senators and imprison them and not listen to them and spend all funds on pleasing the mob. I really like what you said about how like he follows the mob, whereas Maximus like turns the mob into a political body or something, like turns them into people.
Yeah.
That's cool. I wonder though,
Yeah.
like, what if Commodus had I don't know if there's much value in talking about this. Like, what if Commodus had said to let the guy live, like put his thumb up? Like, would Maximus have killed him then? Was he just going to do like whatever the opposite of what Commodus said?
It's opposite day. I'm killing it.
Whatever you say. And then like the crowd goes wild. Like, I mean, like, yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
it's weird because like it's what Jesse said, that he was following what the mob did want.
Yeah,
but then Maximus did what the mob secretly wanted. It's almost like Matt or Commodus can't see past the shallow desires of the mob, and Maximus saw like their deeper desires.
Yeah,
I think is like and maybe I don't know. I don't like putting too lofty of a interpretation on movies. Like I don't like thinking that was like the 4D chess that was going on in the writer's mind. But I do think that this is like, if we want to think of the mob or the people of Rome as worth saving, and that to explain Maximus's love of Rome, I feel like you do have to show some sort of redemption or like redemptive characteristics in the people of Rome. And those were the scenes that stuck out to me as like, yeah, there is still good in them. It just has to be like granted an outlet or given an opportunity.
There has to be some opportunity for all this violence to kind of have meant something.
Mm-hmm.
Which is going back to why I jumped into this question probably earlier than I wanted to, like with the "Are you entertained?" scene, right? And me feeling like one of the crowd. Like I feel like the movie itself is kind of doing what Maximus is doing, where he's, we're seeing this incredible. Frankly, I've seen more violent things than this ever since seeing this movie, but these are like really violent scenes, and they are very entertaining. But because of the dialogue in this movie, like marrying that with its story and its meaning, you realize that all of this is kind of has a more elevated nature. Mm-hmm. So it's not just mindless bloodlust that you're going for. You're going for something higher.
It's amazing. Like, this movie does really marry like all of the best like violent genre, for lack of a better word, tropes. It's like it's a vengeance flick, and it's also like a sacrifice flick, and it's also like a saving Rome flick. Like, it's got it all, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The underdog story. It's so yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
It's good. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it really. It says a lot about violence, right? And it's like all of these people, like, like what is the heart of the mob? And Derek Jacobi says this, and I feel like Derek Jacobi, he's Gracchus, I think. He's supposed to kind of be like the wisest and whatever of the senators. I think so. Like the guy who gets it. He's like, I never claim to be one of the people, but I do claim to be for the people. He's the most virtuous of the senators. And he says, like, Commodus is a wise man because he knows that the heart of Rome, it's not a mob. It's not like the Senate. It's the dust of the arena, the blood and dust of the arena. That's the beating heart of Rome. I mean, like, it's hard to watch this without like thinking about, another big sort of Republican democracy that we all know and love very well, America, right? And like, this is 2000, like the year that we entered into the new millennium, and we're like thinking about America. I wonder, like, it seems like here's this movie with all of this spectacle of blood and gore and stuff, and it's kind of like the movie itself. I'm just wondering if the movie knows that it's making these statements about itself or something like that. I don't know. You guys
I
have
think
a sense of
so.
where I'm going with
Are,
this.
are you saying that you're wondering if it has like analogous implications to America?
Well, okay, no. I mean, sort of. Like this movie, I remember when I saw this movie, a really big question that was around for my parents was like, oh, like, is violence okay in movies? And I don't know if that conversation has ended with people, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
in general, just like people. How much violence is it okay to see? Or like what should or could be shown and to whom? And I think there's a lot of
Mhm.
prudence involved in that. Like you got to kind of pick and choose who it is that is seeing stuff. But I feel like around the time that this movie came out, like this was a really big conversation about like violence in cinema, and we've got Gladiator and The Patriot, which were two of like the most violent movies to come out until then, coming out in the same year.
Mm.
I mean, I know there's, but like big budget violent movies, right?
Okay.
Like big
Right.
budget, big violence.
Right. That was something new actually. It was like a mainstream blockbuster that also has graphic violence.
Like several decapitations, you know?
And it doesn't cut away
Mhm.
from them. It doesn't
Yeah.
imply them. It just
Mhm.
shows them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it is a question. I feel like it's a question that could take us another hour to analyze,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
going back to like, Greek tragedies where, violence was right. They never showed it, right? Like during Oedipus Rex, I know we've mentioned the tragedy a few times. During the actual scenes of violence where he gouges his own eyes out, that was considered like you don't show that on the theater. He does that behind the
Off-screen,
scenes, off screen. And what was the name for it? It was okay. The Greek word, word
Obscure.
or obscene.
Obscene. Okay.
So the word obscene comes from obscena, which means away from the scene, and it came from this idea that an act of violence happens away from the theater. That like
Hmm.
Oedipus Rex walks back onto the theater with his eyes already gouged out, and he talks about the fact that he just gouged his own eyes out, but you don't show it. You would never actually show something like that. That's away from the scene, obscena, which is where obscene. And so we get this idea that obscene things are not supposed to be shown to people. That you just imply them, you describe them, you do whatever you can, but you don't show them to the people. And I always think of that when it comes to violence in movies of like how much is too much. Like if we're portraying something graphic or very adult or very gross, how much of that should we actually see and how much should we actually imply, right? Like some movies decide to show a beheading by just showing a shadow of it, right? We see the shadow of the protagonist beheading somebody, and then it goes back to the scene and it's already happened, right?
Yeah.
Or we see the splatter of the blood on the wall, or we see, we don't see the actual graphic detail, we just see the aftermath of it. And this movie very much was like, no, we're just showing everything. We're showing him decapitate the guy. We're showing him stab the guy in the foot. We're showing, him stab the tiger in the neck. We're showing everything just as it happened. And it is a question that I've always had of like, is this a good thing that cinema is being like realistic? And, it culminates in like the violence that we see in the modern shows like, Walking Dead or Game of Thrones, where it's just like the most graphic thing you can imagine is shown right there for everybody to see.
Yeah.
Like, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing for everybody to see?
I think the answer in this particular movie is it ends with the fight between Maximus and Commodus, right? And eventually they both drop their swords for whatever reason, and Commodus takes out a knife. and it starts becoming, instead of a grand swordplay, a knife fight. And then you see him stab Commodus with that knife, but you don't even really see it. It's really weird.
right.
Like, this whole movie is like really bloody, and then for the final, most climactic fight, you don't see that. He stabs him in the neck, and then you do see him pressing in, but that's all you see, and then he's dead. Mm-hmm. And then the crowd, for the first time in the movie, is silent. They don't like it. That death has impacted them the most. And I have to say, like, I think that's also commentary on us as watching this sort of violence. Like, sometimes when you see, when the death is hidden because of the characters and what they've brought to that fight, depending on who dies, like, that is what has the most weight. And it's not necessarily the biggest, flashiest sword fight. Like, because we didn't know the gladiator who got his head chopped off, that didn't really mean much for us. That was entertaining. This is no longer really entertaining. This is almost like shocking, because like both of our main characters are going to die right now, and we know it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think this movie has a really concrete answer other than say that sort of violence is maybe even more impactful than seeing it all drawn out.
That's interesting. Like, with this being sort of the beginning of a certain type of movie coming after it, it's very interesting that it has so much to say about violence as a spectacle, and how that's not necessarily positive. But yet at the same time, like, I guess I'm thinking about, as you're saying, like, Maximus sort of bringing us through that to to an end of that violence, maybe a conclusion of all the bloodshed, of like, be better and do something more. I don't know. I don't know if I can make something. It's something that I've wondered about forever since I've seen this. I love the movie, but I also feel like, isn't it a little weird for this movie to have like some of the coolest battles that I still have seen? And also, like, the whole movie is like, yeah, this whole like gladiator thing's pretty f***ed up. Like, this is not isn't positive, but it's also kind of cool at the same time. Like, look at the relationship these people are building, and like, like, we can't choose when we die. Like, this idea of fate that sort of imbues the gladiator spirit. Like, we don't choose when we die, but we can choose how. We can choose to die as mice or as men. I don't remember the exact line. And like, oh, that's stirring. I love that. I love that shit, man. Like, I'm here for that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just weird. It's weird. And maybe that's just, good writing.
I remember some talk I was listening to, and it was describing kind of the phenomenon that started in the 60s, where we'd have people walking down the street listening to like rock music, and how rock music played publicly was, considered like really faux pas, and you were being really revolutionary. And he said that rock music in public was a safe danger, is the phrase he used. That like, people love safe dangers, where you are doing something that's scary or shocking, but there's no actual danger to it. And so I think of that a lot with like movies, that we all know that it's just, at the end of the day, it's just ketchup on the person's neck, or it's fake. Right. These are not real people dying. And it was a conversation that I had with my parents a lot, where like, they would say, oh, we don't want you to go see Gladiator because there is X amount of violence in it. And I would be like, well, it's fake. Like, we all know it's fake. It's all happening, in a controlled environment. Nobody's actually being hurt by it. And that if I saw the same violence happen in real life, it would totally change how I reacted to it. Like, if I was on the sidewalk today and watched somebody get their head chopped off with two swords, it would scare the shit out of me completely. Yeah. Like, and it doesn't matter how many times I watch that in movies. If I saw it in real life, it would affect me differently. So there is something to be said about how it happens in a fake environment versus a real environment.
Yeah.
So it is something that I struggle with personally, about like what's acceptable, what is, when it comes to violence, what is an acceptable level, or is there like, does that acceptable level correspond with the amount of value that the movie has? Like, does the value that the Gladiator has, with all of its awesome dialogue and, you know, the speeches that people give and the cinematography and the choreography and all the things we've been talking about, does that in some way offset the fact that there's these awesome scenes of violence that I love to watch, and I feel like one of the audience members clapping to these, you know,
Yeah.
massive amounts of violence? I don't know. It's a question that I definitely
Yeah.
struggle with, but
Yeah. It's a conglomeration of all of the coolest things. But I don't know if it's making statements other than, like, you know, if you're a general of the northern armies of the Felix Legion and you become a gladiator, you should also do what Marcus Aurelius tells you and die for Rome.
I think it's more than that. I think it's supposed to. Yeah.
Okay, so Dan, you've got the last question here. I'm foregoing my question in lieu of the violence question. I think that was great. We skirt around violence a lot and talk about it a lot, and I think that we'll continue to. We like violence. What can I say? It's really fun when people die. I'm kidding. That's not true. But we like we like Gladiator. I don't know. Dan, ask a question.
yeah. Because I grew up with all these, like I mentioned, Ben-Hur and Spartacus. I grew up with these movies about, you know, Roman men fighting and fighting to the death, and, you know, these great dramas. I wanted to ask the question of, like, is this the greatest sword and sandals movie that has ever been made? Like, can we see this as a pinnacle of that subgenre? Or is this something different? Is it doing something so different that we shouldn't put it into that category of sword and sandals movies? I don't know. I love these movies. I love, it's one of the reasons Hail Caesar is like one of my favorite comedies, is because it makes fun of all of this, like the Jesus stories, or these Jesus movies that take place during this time, and it makes fun of the melodrama that takes place in them and the elevated language that we always expect in them. So yeah, I wanted to pose this question to you guys. Like, can we see this movie as like the best one of that genre, or is this something different? Does it fall into a different genre and we shouldn't treat it as part of that kind of that old cinema sword and sandals genre?
Oh, this is definitely. I mean, like, there's definitely callbacks to, like, Gladiator and Spartacus in this, and other stuff. Like, I mean, with the chariots having the spikes on them and all that stuff. I mean, those are also things that happen, but I think that it's definitely. So I'm looking at a list of the top 10 swords and sandals movies of the 21st century. According to IMDb, Gladiator is number 1. Number 2 is Bahubali: The Beginning. And I have to say, Bahubali: The Beginning is pretty damn good.
I've never heard of this movie.
What? You've never heard of Bahubali? There are 2 movies. They're each 3 hours long. They're Indian epics. They're incredible. These movies are incredible.
I've been hearing off and on about Bahubali for years, simply because friend of the pod, Jude,
who was on? He was on the pod. He came on at one point.
What did he
That's
come on?
right, for your birthday episode.
Yeah, he was on the zombie episode.
That's right. Jude has been telling me for years, for like the past 10 years, to watch Bahubali and Bahubali 2.
So Jude comes to our house, like, I don't know, once every year, and makes us a big dinner. And after the kids go to bed, we watch the next installment of the Bahubali epic. I think they're currently in development for number 3. I could be wrong about that. I hope they're in development for number 3 because these movies are incredible.
This sounds like a made up word. Like you guys are pranking me.
It is an Indian.
It's Indian,
movie, right?
It's Indian. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's between Gladiator and Bahubali, personally. But
I am so mad that I've never seen these.
oh man, you got to
I'm gonna watch these. Yeah.
What is number 3? If it's Gladiator and the Bahubali.
300. This is all 21st century movies. So 300 comes next. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't like that.
Like, I feel like that's weird to classify that as one of these movies. I feel like it's a lot more of a almost superhero movie or like comic book movie for sure. I mean, it is a comic book movie.
Yeah.
Although it does happen to take place, you know.
And it does have swords, and it does have sandals, so.
And abs. Lots of abs.
And so, way too many abs, in a lot of ways. But yeah, like, hearing you mention, like, all the swords and sandals movies, it does seem like it's the best. Like, if you ask me which one of these movies I want to watch right now, it's always going to be Gladiator.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I think...
I do love Spartacus, but Spartacus is too long.
Yeah.
Like, and you know, it's not as much of a spectacle either. Like Gladiator does have the spectacle aspect to it, and it's a nice movie that you want to see on the big screen. Like it's a lot of fun, and it has so much meaning. Yeah, I would always go for Gladiator.
I definitely feel like for me, it's like Gladiator and Ben-Hur and Spartacus are the 3 that I'd be interested in seeing pretty much at any time. And the rest sort of fall away from there. Like a lot of those stuff from the 50s or whatever. They call them peplum dramas. I think that's like toga. I don't know.
Okay.
But I mean, yeah. This makes me wonder, like, I always have a question with these, like, okay, so Gladiator's the best now, and is it because it took sort of this formula from 50 years before, 30 years before, whatever, and brought new like ways of movie making and acting and cinematography and all of that stuff forward to now? And so 50 years from now, is Gladiator going to be as forgotten as, I don't know, Hannibal from 1959? Or
no,
Gladiator is from 1940 or something like that? Like, is it going to be like that? Last Days of Pompeii from 1935?
No, I think
I'm sure there's people who know these. But.
Well, I think 300 will. I think that'll definitely fade. It already has faded pretty considerably, at least from what I know. Like when it used to be such a huge deal just 10 years ago, right? Well, more than 10 years ago, but even 10 years ago, it was like in the public consciousness. But like, yeah, Gladiator's 22 years old at this point. I think it's here to stay. It's here to stay for a long time. Like you have Ben-Hur and Spartacus; those are 40 and 50 years old, and they're sticking around. But you've also seen a bunch of like Exodus: Gods and Kings. That was supposed to be a huge deal in a lot of ways, like a back to basics, like sword and sandals movie. And nobody cares about that movie anymore. Like as soon as it came out, it was immediate. Like it's really hard. Directors have always like in modern times have found a really hard time trying to establish like a new sword and sandals feel for a movie and what that should look like, and it keeps failing. I think the fact that the Gladiator does work with not even modern movie making standards, but 22-year-old modern 22-year-old movie standards, like it still works.
22 years old. That shouldn't be allowed. That's horrible.
It's over 2 decades, and it's still sticking with us. It's still here to stay. I think it's going to be around for a long time.
I hope so. I think so. Yeah.
The story is too good, it's too classic, and it moves too well to fade.
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys are saying. I think that, especially on this recent reviewing of it, it made me appreciate the movie all the more. I was worried that it was going to feel dated, or that it was like the action sequences weren't going to stand up. I was really worried rewatching it that it wouldn't stand the test of time, and it did for me. I thought that it was amazing. I thought that everything stood up. I thought the dialogue was intriguing. Yeah, it's really profound, but that's what we expect going into a movie like this. Like, we don't want Romans to be talking like they're in the 21st century. Like, we want them to sound like they are, speaking in ancient Roman times, and everything they say has to be profound because, when things are in Latin, they sound profound. So therefore everything they said must sound profound. I loved it. I thought that it did everything that I remembered in, the old Sword and Sandals movies. I thought it just did them better. I thought it did them in an up-to-date way that didn't feel, pandering. It didn't feel cheesy. It just felt very refreshing and impactful and like really beautiful. I was glad, the fact that it won the Oscars, I think says volumes about what the Oscars, what the Academy Awards are looking for. And I definitely came away from it with a greater appreciation for this genre of movie. And I also love 300, so Jesse, we'll have to talk about that later. We'll have to do that at a later episode.
Yeah.
Maybe. I'll also be looking into Bahubali.
Yes, that's going to be a later series. Maybe that'll be a birthday episode. We'll do the Bahubalis.
Dude, I'm just looking at the pictures from this thing. It looks phenomenal.
All right, movie night, Dan. Yeah. Movie night.
Yes, movie night.
Bahubali.
We're just gonna do a Bahubali marathon.
You got to get Jude to come out because I don't think that you're allowed to watch it without Jude. I think that's the law.
That's a requirement.
Yeah.
All right. So we talked a lot about this movie. We talked a lot about who made it, and then what on earth is in here and what it's trying to say, and also about its legacy that it's leaving behind. But the biggest legacy that we have yet to discuss is the dad movie legacy. Is this a dad movie? And clearly, why is it a dad movie? Because I think we're all going to say it's a dad movie.
I don't know. Yeah, dude, it's totally. This is the daddest movie that ever dadded.
This movie birthed other movies. It is the daddest of all movies.
This movie birthed me single-handedly.
Right.
As a teenager.
As a teenager. Like my mind, or something. I don't know.
Right. This is like a coming of age. This made me into a man. And as a man, I could make other people as a dad. And yeah, this movie, I feel like was everything that I wanted to be as a teenager. Everything I wanted to experience in movies as a teenager was encapsulated in this movie, and it's still incredible. I can't wait. I can honestly say I cannot wait to show this to my kids.
Yeah,
same here. Absolutely, yeah.
I think about what the big movies that my kids are going to be going to, and it's going to be a lot of Marvel movies, and those are all movies with great entertainment and not a lot of substance, not a lot to think or really talk about, in my opinion. But this movie has that. I know, right? I know. So many people are that's all.
A lot of people talk about those a lot, Jesse.
They talk about I feel like a lot of those are about the consistencies within the universe and not about the ideas presented. And this movie's presenting so much. I'm not even sure if it answers a lot of what it has, but it's here to talk about that, and it's here to just it's a guy that just wants he wants to get back to his wife and son, and he can't quite yet because there's something for him to do.
But not yet.
But not yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
man, I feel like it's
dead.
Oh yeah. Well, watching it also, I don't know about you guys, but for me, it does. Watching a movie like this is always a breath of fresh air because it is chock full of just sincerity. This is a person who, like this movie is not in. It's so what you do. Like it's got lines like "What you do in this life echoes in eternity," and like, all we are is shadows and dust, Maximus. Like, I don't know, these warring ideas about how to live your life and what it means to be a man. Like, gosh, it's incredible. It's incredible. Yeah. And I don't really feel like there's much that I enjoy that's like I'm going to say that both I enjoy and is also clear about what its intentions and beliefs about the world are. And it's wonderful to encounter that. And to come back to it after all these years and be like, no, it's still here. This is still true.
I will say the closest to this movie that I've seen has been very recently. The Northman was very much like that. It was very clear about what it is and what its approach to the world is. The difference being, like, in this movie, I really like Maximus. Like, Maximus is a guy you could just unquestionably get behind. Whereas in The Northman, which has mostly the same story in a lot of ways, he's a murderer and a rapist and a slave trader. And it's much harder to get behind that. But this guy, like I know he's got a lot of issues. Like he's led this whole war or whatever, but like the way it's led is
traded slaves because they took slaves when they conquered people. So
they did, but
it's just the Northman.
It's whitewashed a little bit. No, I think
I'm kidding.
But it's not portrayed in here.
Yeah.
The way the movie is set up is so that you can get behind Maximus, whereas the Northman is set up where you should not really get behind him all the way.
Yeah, I will say, like, watching it as a dad, when he goes to his farm and sees his wife and child killed and hung and burned and all that, it was like, it hit me differently, obviously, because now I have a wife and kids. Last time I watched this, I didn't. And I remember watching it as a teenager. I was just like, oh, he must be pissed. And watching it as a dad, I was like, he would be like almost like losing his life. Like that, he literally lost everything that mattered to him in his life. And that is like so much more impactful. I feel like when you know what it is to have a family. And so I guess that's just a reason that, like, I want this movie to be a part of not just my life, but like my kids' life, my kids as teenagers' life, my kids as adults, and, you know, future parents' life. Like, this is a movie that is not just a dad movie; it's a grandfather movie. It's an everything movie. It's like a movie that I think will be in my family for forever.
Yeah,
it'll echo in eternity. It's for my family.
Oh, I love it. Ooh. You know, I think that this is also like a mom movie. Like, or I mean, my mom loves it. My wife loves it.
My mom loves it. My wife loves it.
Yeah, every woman I know loves it. Maybe it's just like this is an epic human movie that everybody loves.
That's it,
and that's it. That's it.
Yeah,
which means, but it's like it's not like too good to be like classified as a mom movie or a dad movie too, because it's like, no, I'm here for all of the people of Rome.
Yeah,
we are the people of Rome.
We're all the people of Rome. Well, real people. Yeah, no, go ahead.
Real people of Rome. No. Meisters cutting boards. All right, guys. I think we've touched on everything we can for this movie. or not everything, but
did you think about how he rode 2 horses from Germany to Spain, like south of Spain, I think, in like 2 days? That's wild.
He has got a great horse.
He's got 2 great horses. That never hit me. I was like, that's a long way. I don't know if I've ever seen that epic of a journey. You know?
Yeah.
It did make
Although
me
I don't really know how far it is.
Yeah, it made me want to look at an ancient map of Germania, Gallia, Hispania, like see how close these things were. I mean, at most it was probably like 10 days of riding.
Germania is. I think this is more. You know, what do I know? I think it's more Western Europe, but I don't know anything. I don't know anything about ancient geography.
I'm basing that off of the fact that you can bike ride from the furthest east of Spain to the furthest west of Spain in like 2 weeks. If you can bike that, then like I'm taking that measurement and saying, yeah, you could probably go from like southern Spain or southern Germany to like northern Spain in like 2 weeks of horseback riding. All right. Whether that's true or not, I have no idea.
That we are getting way too particular about part of the journey. Really, but yes, this is a dad movie. Absolutely a dad movie. Next week, we're going to be hitting you up with next up in the chronology, which is Robin Hood. Also Ridley Scott and also Russell Crowe. Never seen it. Really excited for that. Mike, I don't think Mike will be with us, but I think we'll be around too. Yeah.
I think this is the first movie that I'm the only one that's seen it.
Wow.
I'm very nervous, to be honest. I'm really worried I remember loving this movie like 10 years ago when I saw it, like really loving it. And yeah, I hope I still love it. I hope it's a good one to do on the podcast.
I hope it is too. But until next time, I'm Jesse.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Mike.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Not Your Father's Movies. Please let us know what you think about movies and our discussions on our Twitter at NYF Movies, on our Not Your Father's Movies Facebook group. Follow us on Instagram or email us at notyourfathersmovies@gmail.com. Also, please consider supporting us on Patreon. This podcast has cost us a lot of time, effort, and money. Please consider contributing and we will start sending you monthly newsletters, our bonus WhatsApp episodes, and even an NYFM mug. We hope to hear from you soon. Lastly, thank you to Max Agras for our awesome theme playing right now, and to Andy LaFave from Don't Dance for the remix that you hear at the beginning of every episode. Thanks again for listening to Not Your Father's Movies.